Doncaster Belles boss John Buckley angry at WSL fast. This was originally from 28th of April 2013. Doncaster Belles manager John Buckley has criticised the timing of the announcement that his side will play in the second division of an expanded Women's Super League WSL in 2014. When the WSL expands to 8 teams next year, Manchester City will take Doncaster's place in the top flight. It's the most farcical thing I've ever heard, said Buckley. I just don't understand the timing. It's demotivating for the players. Chairman Alan Smart wrote in his programme notes for the Chelsea game, the Belles have been relegated after only 90 minutes of football. Doncaster played Chelsea in the league at that point. Now, Doncaster Belles to appeal against relegation from the top tier from the 17th of May 2013. Now, the club has been a mainstay in the top flight for 22 years in the newly formed FAWSL since 2011 and the Women's Premier League since 1991. But next season they will be replaced by Manchester City ladies. To say we are disappointed might be the understatement of the year, Rovers chairman Alan Smart told BBC Sport. We've had support from all over the world and people are angry and bemused at the decision. But we are built on a wider fabric than one big benefactor. Doncaster Rovers Belles are a massive community club. We are made of strong stuff and we will fight on. As one of the founding members of the National Women's League, Doncaster have twice won the league and FA Cup double and were synonymous with as women's football grew in the early 90s. But from next season, this Summer League will expand to 2 divisions, with Manchester City joining 7 other teams in FAWSL 1. Having finished second from bottom in the first 2 WSL seasons, Doncaster will drop down the division to FAWSL 2 and compete against 9 other sides. The FA made its decision via an independent panel where clubs were assessed on their financial sustainability, where factors such as management, marketing and quality of their coaching staff and facilities were considered. Doncaster discovered the news after one game of this season, with boss John Buckley calling the situation farcical, as we just mentioned. The decision to split the league into 2 tiers with relegation and promotion between both is part of the FA's 5-year plan to make women's football the second most played sport in the country behind men's football. So, Doncaster Rovers Belles, a brief history. Formed in 1969 as Bellevue Belles, becoming Doncaster Belles in 1971. One of the founding members of the National Premier League in 1991. They completed the league and FA Cup double in the 91-92 season without losing the game. Completed another league and FA Cup double in 93-94. Teamed up with the men's team in 2005 to become Doncaster Rovers Belles and share stadium. They became one of the 8 teams in FAWSL as the top tier moved to the summer in 2011. They finished second from bottom in both seasons so far, and they have been demoted to FAWSL 2 for the 2014 season, with the club appealing the decision. Now, in WSL 1 for the 2014 season, Arsenal, Birmingham City, Bristol Academy, Chelsea, Everton, Notts County, formerly Lincoln Ladies, Liverpool and Manchester City, who replaced Doncaster Rovers Belles, who in WSL 2, Aston Villa, Doncaster Rovers Belles, Durham, London Bees, Barnet FC, Millwall Lionesses, Oxford United, Reading, Sunderland, Watford and Yeovil Town. Now, you know what, yeah? With this particular decision, all right, it was made by like an independent committee or whatever, but you know, I agree with Buckley because the timing of it is just weird. Why would you tell someone after one game of the season, oh yeah, you're demoted? It's like, wait, hold on. We've already played in the top league. How can you demote someone after already starting a league season? I can understand it if it was due to them going into administration and they were fined 10 points. I can understand docking points for that. But you don't just go relegating someone automatically. It's like, no, I don't agree with doing that. And at the end of the day, if, let's say for instance, the Doncaster Rovers Belles win the appeal, what, do they get promoted back? And do Man City then drop? What happens there? That would be my question. What then happens? I'm confused by this. And at the end of the day, I can understand Doncaster Rovers Belles wanting to appeal the decision because as Buckley said, the timing of it is farcical. I don't get it. But G-Man, I know you had a kind of theory about this that we were discussing yesterday.
Yeah, like I said, I don't know much about women's football yet, but when I heard that, I can't remember the commentator. Well, Jonathan Pierce and the lady commentator that was speaking about it. When I heard them mention it, it was like, so Manchester City are being promoted and Doncaster are being relegated. And for me, it was two things: money. That's one. I believe Man City as a club, the men's team as well, having the money and the backing of the Arab owners. Yeah, and then also, to add to that, just the fact that it's Manchester City, the name, the brand itself, it sounds much more appealing than Doncaster Belles. Not that Doncaster ain't a big women's football team. Again, I don't know much about women's football, so I can't comment on who's the biggest and best. Yeah, but in name purposes, it's like Manchester City are known in the men's game, and like we said, marquee names. Potentially that's what the FA could be looking at. Let's get all the marquee names in there. Let's get the Manchester Uniteds, the Liverpools, the Arsenals, the teams that are in the Premier League. Let's get them at the top because it just looks good.
Yeah,
but I don't know what does Jesse Fizzle think?
I think that's a very, very good theory. Mostly because when you look at what Manchester City are doing away from the football pitch, they are announcing some pretty hefty deals in terms of the actual weight and the meaning behind the deals that they're actually orchestrating at the minute. So for me, I think money has a lot to do with it, in that Manchester City have probably said to the FA, listen, if you put us in the top tier, here's a bag of money. You just have to move one of the quote-unquote lesser teams just to do it. I don't know why it wasn't a system of, okay, look, you want to introduce it from, next season. Why don't we just have it that Manchester City start in the second tier? Because they're new. Yeah, there's absolutely no reason to go and kick out an existing member of the league, i.e. when it was a single tier, just to accommodate somebody who's come in with a bag of money. Because for me, that's all that it could possibly be. There's nothing else. And then you can go and say, right, effective as of this season, everybody's starting afresh. The bottom two teams or whatever it is, and the top two teams in the lower division, they'll exchange places at the end of the season, and that's that. Or if you wanted to make it the bottom three, you could have like a third place relegation playoff. The team that loses, they go down, and you could have a third place promotion playoff as well.
Yeah.
And they could go up. So whichever way they wanted to do it is fine. But for them to just go and say, right, we're having a new team that's being added, so you guys are the ones that lose out. It's like, what? Why? It's not even for footballing reasons. The season's just started. Like, we played one game. So how does that actually work? I mean, the worst part about all of this is, for me anyway, has it ever even come out to explain why they've done that?
No, they actually haven't, from what we know of. So
this is it, and that's the thing for me that makes it even worse. It's like, well, where's the logic behind it, other than you've obviously been given a big bag of money?
I mean, I can understand.
Anything else? So you know what? Just like Too Short, I'm gonna have to blow the whistle on those guys and say, no, you know what? You're wrong. You're wrong. At the end of the day, right? How it should work is your long-standing members should stay where they are, and then any new members start in a lower tier. How else are they supposed to go and build their team? How are they supposed to go and build, I suppose, a legacy of having a team, like having a youth setup, etc., if you don't go and start by growing? So for me, I just think it's a dumb move by the FA. It's obvious that money has played a big part in it. And I also agree with the G-Man in that it is about brands. Yeah. Manchester City now is an absolutely huge brand.
Well, the old sign on the marquee kind of thing is kind of like
This is it. For me, they're absolutely huge. And the name itself carries star power. I don't know what they're going to do in the women's transfer market, but I wouldn't hesitate to go and say they're going to throw some money at that as well. And go for some of the world's top players in women's football. At least try to anyway. And go from there.
But see, that, as I said, the timing of it is just very, very weird. I mean, I can understand fully having WSL 1 and 2. Can totally understand that because it increases the competition. But when you're basically relegating teams based on factors outside of football, it's like in wrestling when you just give someone a title. no match, no match, no nothing. It's just you come out and hand someone a belt. No tournament, no single eliminate 32-man single elimination tournament or anything like that. It's just you come out and you hand over a title to someone, like what Jeff Jarrett did to Jeff Jarrett and Mark Henry in 1999, where Jarrett just gave him the European title. Where in 2001 Booker T just gave Chris Kanyon the US title. I felt Kanyon deserved it anyway, but this one of them was just given the title. You're basically you're almost demeaning. For me, you're demeaning in that with that analogy. You're demeaning the title, but with football, it's a case of you're basically demeaning the team, because that is so demeaning. Imagine starting a season in a top league and then just being demoted after one game. It's like, well, that's not on. And as Buckley said, that it is demotivating, and it's always going to be. It's always going to be very demotivating, because first and foremost, it's not really fair, and secondly, if the G-Man's theory is right, then hey, it's one of them ones. It's just the good old boys in women's football, and women's football could end up going the same way as the men's game if they're doing it that way. I mean, the FA do, for me, have to come out and clarify the full reasons as to why they've done it. Because otherwise, it looks stupid. And it does look like a bit of, to once again quote the Dukes of Hazzard, just the good old boys kind of networks. It just looks like that.
No, and I have to agree with you. I think that's the thing for me, personally, that's missing, right? Because I'm talking, when we go and look at it purely from a footballing perspective, what reason could they have? There's no purely footballing reason for them doing this, right? So the only thing that I can think that they could possibly announce is, they're going to have money that's going to be redistributed around the league, probably in the form of promotion and relegation packages in terms of parachute payments. But that's about it. Anything outside of that, I really don't know where they're talking from, apart from they're talking out both sides of their mouth.
I was gonna say they're talking out of their backside, but yeah, that orifice. But hey, I don't know.
So for me, I think the FA need to do the honourable thing here and actually own up to why this is happening, because the thing for me, it's actually a travesty. It's a miscarriage of justice to go old school wrestling commentary on you.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of both, just because, what reason have you actually got for doing it?
No, exactly. I mean, also, it's a case of, and Kane, take it easy, by the way. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Kane.
Just want to, I want to throw this out, because we've got two women's football experts in Sophie and Rachel. So it's a case of obviously at Girls on the Ball on Twitter and www.girlsontheball.com. I want to hear from you two, because obviously you're a lot closer to it than we are. So what do you think about the Doncaster Rovers Belles being basically relegated after a game?
I think the timing, my theory behind the timing of it, because it was meant to come out in June during the international break. I think someone got their hands on the information and threatened to leak it, and meant that the FA had no choice but to come out and say what was happening, and then had nothing prepared to say why. So that's what it seems like. It seems very strange that they first of all make the announcement and then knowing that it's going to cause uproar, and then have no follow-up and no reasoning behind it. So I reckon that it wasn't meant to come out now, but they didn't have a choice in releasing the information.
We just find it really sad, because it's just, and really unusual, because Manchester City, they have the complete backing of the men's squad, that's known, so they do have that financial clout, but they in the FAWPL this season, they were mid-table, just above mid-table.
Yeah.
And so surely if you're going to replace anyone with Doncaster and the top plate, you should put the top of the league, which was Sunderland, who are very well renowned, and should put them up there if you're going to do it. Not that they should, because surely a team should be allowed to fight for their place in a league and for relegation.
Because Doncaster were the first ladies team to start playing in their men's stadium. You know, so it's unusual that they would be, and they're one of the oldest women's clubs as well.
And the FA, the way they've just gone about it is it seems to be with complete disregard for any of the fans. The Doncaster decision wasn't the only decision that was strange. The Lincoln ladies' decision as well was very, very strange. And even yesterday at the Keep Moat, the Doncaster fans were banned from bringing in their flyers and their petitions and their bells to the ground, and that's just complete censorship.
Yeah, no, it's in terms of complete the complete censorship. You know what? Yeah, there is another obligatory wrestling reference coming, and at the end of the day, Jezzy will get this one. It's one of them was the FA, as part of what I like to call the moronic trinity. Man, it seems like with that censorship, they're going on like right to censor the RTC.
See what you done there?
Yeah. It's just one of them ones. It's like, look, you can't be censoring people from protesting.
It's very strange because they weren't even protesting. Like, Donny Belles are known that all the fans always bring their bells to the stadium, and you get in for free if you bring a bell. And what they were going to do is they were going to bring their bells to the game, and on 22 minutes, because women have been up in the top flight league for 22 years, they were going to have a minute's applause and bell ringing as a sign of, you know, thanking the fans and the club and for all their support and all that kind of thing, and just making reference to the fact that Donny Belles have been up there for so long. And their bells were taken away from them, their flyers, everything. It wasn't even like they were protesting, they were just encouraging people to join in their celebration of Donny Belles for the last 22 years in top flight football. And some of them said they were lucky to even get their tickets back.
Wow. For me, I just think that's shocking. One of the things that I said earlier, and I know you guys will agree with me, is that for me, one of the saddest things about the Women's FA Cup final was that there weren't that many people in the stadium. For me, this is one of those things, you know, much like we see in the men's game, paying tribute to former players, whether they be with us currently or not, that for me is a part of the football experience. It's one of those things that includes everybody. So I don't see why they would have a problem with doing that. If anything, it just raises more awareness for the women's game. And it seems to me like the FA is trying to do everything in their power to kind of counteract that, which makes absolutely no sense to me.
It just seems like they're trying to sweep it under the carpet, and so that we forget about it, and then hopefully in a couple of months we will no longer be asking questions.
I think they're going to come out with a statement when they plan to announce it. Yeah. That's, you know, and they're just trying to quieten everyone down until then. I mean, you've seen, even with the Lincoln decision, it was reflected in the stands like the very next week, and their crowd numbers are down by quite a lot. So I reckon that might have had an effect on the fact that the game was played in Doncaster as well.
See, the thing with me, the FA trying to sweep stuff under the carpet. We've heard the phrase "game recognized game," and you're looking kind of unfamiliar right now. Like I said last week, morons recognize morons, and the FA are looking familiar again. And I don't enjoy. The thing is, I don't enjoy having to swipe at the FA every chance I get. I really don't enjoy it, because if I'm having to swipe at the FA, it's like questioning a referee's decision and having to question it. You don't want to have to do it, but you're only doing it because they're forcing you to do it. And at the end of the day, yeah. I mean, Mike Hardiman, you brought up quite an interesting point in the Skype chat a few minutes ago. Would you like to articulate that for the people? Because it was quite an interesting one, in regards to the FA and the game generally.
Yeah, basically what I was saying is, basically like you've touched on there, the FA just seem to be ruining the game in one way or another. Basically more and more, and it happens season on season, and it happens a couple of times every season at least.
It's one of them ones. I mean, whether it be weird decisions, whether it be dragging their feet or probably dragging their knuckles with the cretins up there, but that's a guess. But it's one of them ones. They always do seem to, like, for us, it's we the people for the people, and I think maybe the FA need to realise that, because at the end of the day, some of the decisions they've made in the past and even the recent past have just been baffling. The way they've handled certain things. I mean, Stevie Wonder could see that they handled it badly. It's one of them ones. This is the scary thing about it. The FA, on a general basis, are going on like moronic tyrants. Almost, it's one of them ones. Almost like Vince McMahon since 2001. But that's a completely different story. But it's one of them ones where I just don't get the motivation behind it. And as has been said, it does seem like, in one way, they're like, yeah, we're doing so much for the women's game. Look what we're doing for the women's game. And like, but at the same time, they're hindering the progress at the same time. And it's just really, really weird. I really don't get it. I don't get why the FA are doing it. But the FA, see, this is the thing with the FA, is they're 150. They're celebrating 150 years this year, and pardon me if this sounds a bit crude, but at the end of the day, for the last 5 bordering on 6 months, they've been having a huge circle jerk saying, oh yeah, we're 150 years, we've been around for 150 years, we're gonna have a couple of friendlies with Brazil, we're gonna have one with Ireland, one with Scotland, we're really gonna celebrate all year. And it's like, wait, hold on, yeah, that's all well and good you celebrating, but you've got a lot of things that in that 150 years you've dragged your feet on and you need to sort out. And it's one of them ones, there are entities out there that are screaming for the FA to raise their game, to literally raise their game. They want to talk about, oh, everyone needs to fall in line. What line? Because the FA are just, they send out so many mixed messages. It's untrue.
I have to agree with you. I mean, I know they talk about this 5-year plan for women's football to become the second most popular sport in the UK behind men's football, but if you're going to be censoring fans at arguably one of the biggest women's games of the year, then how are you actually, like, where's the promotion bit? Where's the inclusion bit? Where's the expanding the fan base part of their promotion plan in their 5-year plan, if that's what they're doing?
Of course.
Right? And how can it also be, as Sophie and Rachel have rightly brought up in the chat, that, now that we're talking about bringing in financial fair play, one of the first things that you want to go and do to clubs that, women's clubs that are reliant on the men's clubs, is to take away the women's clubs as part of their restrictions, to go and say, well, you're going to have to cut back on something to make sure that you make ends meet. So the first thing to go is the women's game. Why haven't they said, listen, you have to go and do everything but that? Or said, you know what, you do have to go and toe in line with financial fair play and how we're going to bring it out. But because we're looking to expand the women's game, one of the other things you have to do is actually have a women's team. So how this hasn't happened, I have no idea. I mean, I know they have this 5-year plan, but I'm going to drop the reference in there. Maybe they needed a 4-year plan.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe that's what they needed. And maybe, just maybe, they need to go and look at what the fans actually want.
Yeah. Well, it's one of them was just like Michael Hayes said in the Rise and Fall of WCW. It's a case of, it's the fans. That's what matters. So it's one of them ones. I mean, it is just weird. I mean, Sophie and Rachel, you put another interesting point in the Skype chat. Would you like to articulate that as well?
Yeah, it was just about the Lincoln decision, because when they announced the 33 teams that were going to be put forward for the expansion of the FAWSL, Lincoln was put down as Lincoln and not Notts County.
Yeah.
So no one had any idea until the decision was announced, 3 weeks ago, that Lincoln were now becoming Notts County. And understandably, the fans are really upset. They've got a really nice support base in Lincoln. The town and BBC Lincolnshire and everyone was getting really around the Lincoln ladies, and now it's being completely uprooted. And I know attendance has dropped by about half already this season. It's a real shame.
Well, it's a huge shame. It is a huge shame. I mean, Big T, did you want to jump in on this as well? Because I can see what you put in the Skype chat.
Yeah, like as Sophie was saying, I quite rightly agree. I mean, in a way, it can be good and it can be bad for the women's game, because if you've got two sets of teams joining up, maybe it could bring them both together. But at the same time, you've got different cities and different counties coming together, and I really can't see it working, because Lincoln women's team, brilliant team, Notts County's women's team, I'm not. Excuse me. I'm sounding wrong then. I'm a Notts County fan, and the women's team for Notts County, it hasn't been that good on so many levels, and I'm the first to admit that. So maybe in a way, it can be a blessing in disguise for joining up together. But as Sophie quite rightly said, it's a shame because Lincoln's women's team could have gone on to much better things. But at the end of the day, these things happen. You just have to move on and take the ball by the horns and just go with the flow. Really, I mean that's all I can unfortunately say. Really. So.
But for me, right, that just goes back to this 5-year plan or lack thereof, right? Why, if you're looking to go and expand the women's game and make it the most second popular game in England behind men's football, would you even be looking at having teams merge in the first place? Why wouldn't you go and say, well, look, as much as it makes sense for you to do this, what we actually want is to have 2 separate teams, because we want more teams, because we want to expand the game. So for me, it just boggles the mind as to what it is they're actually trying to do with this 5-year plan. Because for me, as a fan, and as someone who wants to see the women's game grow and reach the level where, you know what, actually the only thing it is second to is the coverage on TV of the men's game for, obviously financial reasons. And I hope that in time that dissipates in itself, But for me, I'm just like, well, if you're trying to expand the game, then why are you allowing things like this to happen? Why have you not put in regulations that say, well, actually, as much as, you're thinking of doing that, what we want is for it to be like this.
I just want to.
So for me, they're looking to really hurt the game than they are to protect it. Yeah. So their 5-year plan for me is backwards.
You know what, Jesse? I just want to add this to that again, like with the Lincoln and the Notts County thing. Again, for me, I'm just looking at it from a simple sense of view. It's a marquee name. Notts County are a marquee name. Last year they were known for that big friendly match against Juventus because they had the whole swapping of the shirts when Juventus and then when they first initially met up, time in a friendly. So that was years back. There's a connection, and with marquee name, it's Notts County are known across the world. Whereas Lincoln, who are Lincoln known by, and then when you're marketing this whole WSL to the rest of the world, how are you trying to market it? What names are you going to try and market it? Lincoln and Doncaster, or Manchester City and Notts County?
I see where you're going with that, and I do agree that I think this probably is part of their 5-year plan, that it is all about brand names. But for me, in and of itself, that's backwards. Yeah, right? The other thing that they need to go and do
it should be
is
about
make
on the
brand
pitch.
Names of the other teams.
Yeah.
And look at the history that they have to go and say, well, actually, look, this is the reason why they're there.
No, exactly.
Give fans a bit of background information to go and say, well, look, actually, this is one of the teams that's been in the top flight of women's football for however many years.
Yeah. No, exactly. It's one of them ones. Rather than, but again, bringing it back to wrestling, it's like rather than having the same teams over and over and over and over and over again, why not promote new teams? Why not help new teams? Why not help new teams? Like with what I hear of kind of current wrestling, it's always they just keep going back to the old stars, using the old stars over and over and over again. How many times are you going to be able to bring back old stars and keep using them? It's not a long-term plan. It's not a long-term philosophy. Now, if you're building new stars as you're going along, then you're building long-term. Like whilst you got to look at it whilst WCW was on top, they weren't really making that many new stars. But the WWF at the time were making new stars all the time. So one of them was Bret Hart. 97, Bret Hart, their champion, leaves the company, goes to WCW. They made Steve Austin. They built Steve Austin up and had him win the title and had him become one of the biggest stars ever. They were developing stars. You had The Rock developing, you had Triple H developing. But now they keep going back to those kind of old stars, and it's short-termism. And at the end of the day, it's got to be constantly evolving. And it looks like the FA is trying to stop that evolution before it's even barely started, which is not.
And again, the other thing that I want to point out, and I do agree with you, I think you've raised an excellent point, is one of the points that Sophie and Rachel make in the Skype chat, in that, what about the fans that have really gone you know, and I'm talking about beyond grassroots. I'm talking about seedlings level. Yeah, it really helped to build up the club and the supporters to the point where it is today. To then just go and say to them, you know, in the case of the Lincoln ladies, right, we're just going to move you, and we're going to move the club, and they're going to be somewhere else now. Like what?
Fair. It's not fair on the fans. It's not fair on the fans. It's not fair on the club. Because if you're gonna build something, you need momentum. You need stability, and that's going to be the next general talking point, which we're leaning into. But at the end of the day, you need stability. You need consistency. And if you haven't got that, how are you ever going to build? If you keep moving stuff and shifting stuff around, then how in the hell are you ever going to get any sort of traction underneath you? Again, I don't mean to keep beating the dead horse, but another wrestling example, when in the rise and fall of WCW, they were talking about the constant change in management and in terms of who's in charge. It meant that they couldn't get any momentum behind the company, because when you subscribe to one theory, they end up changing it after 6 months, and you got to subscribe to another theory. It's like changing managers. It's like changing managers, changing locations of a team every 6 months. You're never going to be able to get any traction behind you. And it's a shame that the FA can't seem to see this. It's such a shame that they can't seem to see it. They can't seem to see what is blindingly obvious. That's the concerning thing for me. Well, Mike Harneman, you wanted to jump in on this as well, and then we're going to come back to Sophie and Rachel just to round out.
Yeah, basically, I was just writing in the chat here. I'll read this out because this is what I've just said here. After basically what happened in the Olympics there, where obviously the British team and all the female Olympic teams from that obviously grew there. Basically, what you'd ideally want is basically to have a stable and successful men and women's team basically working alongside each other and being able to sort of, you know, just work together in unison, really.
Well, yeah, you need a united front, to coin a phrase. And if you haven't got that, you're screwed. I mean, Sophie and Rachel, did you want to add something before we move on?
No, it was just been a really sad start to the season, and it's meant to be a real like time of excitement for the women's game, and it's kind of been left with a bit of a bitter taste, if that's the right turn of phrase. Because we're meant to be really excited about the expansion, and it's growing, and more people are watching, coming to the grounds every week, and yet this happens, and it kind of uproots a few things.
No, it's true. And it's like all I can say is congratulations to the FA for once again proving why I have you down as one of the three involved, one of the trifecta that makes up my moronic trinity: the FA, FIFA, UEFA.
Couldn't agree more. I mean, it just seems like the time when women's football starting to gain momentum, and I will put my hand up and say that, you know, the FA have been a part of that. They're moving the goalpost yet again. So in all the time where they're trying to go and expand and grow and have this 5-year plan, they're also setting themselves back probably about 5 years, to be honest.
And you know what? I'm just going to follow this up with what some of the Facebookers have been saying about a question that we asked. WSL Doncaster Belles have been relegated from the top tier of women's football to WSL 2 and replaced with Man City Ladies. What's your views? And Cliff Chris, who's been quite vocal, has said, well, obviously money talks. He's also said it's never right, disgraceful how it's been done. And he's then gone on to say Doncaster are in the Doncaster in the Championship, Russ. It's all to do with the politics of money. The FA are in it for the backhanders, and this proves. I think he's got a bit mixed up with Doncaster men's team, but he understands what has gone on. Yeah. But Russell Vernon, who's one of our regulars, has basically said it's a disgrace. They should have decided who was in the WSL 1 and WSL 2 at the end of WSL season which has just started. And like the G-Man says, money does talk. He's also said, and it's probably also because Man City are a big name club in the men's game and Doncaster are not that big in the men's game. He's gone on to say, basically, Man City, Man United, Chelsea, Arsenal, Liverpool, etc.
So basically what, saying that they're the big teams, they're the marquee names.
And
when you see those names on the marquee, like you were saying earlier, when you see those names on the marquee, it's kind of like, oh, I want to go see that.
Yeah.
Which is a shame. It's a shame.